these things quarterly or monthly, however we do it. Welcome to today's meeting. JJ, if you want to go ahead and hit record, you can go ahead and get started on that, please. Thank you. Hope everyone's had a good week so far. Today, your session is sponsored in part by the CCRG program, also known as CCRG. So we will be talking about the Career and College Readiness Graduate Program, and then how to enter those scores. My name is Patrick Holyfield. I'm the Dean of Enrollment Management at Stanley Community College, and I'll let my co-host introduce herself.
Good morning. So my name is Bridget Myers and have several hats. Patrick's put on the screen there. I'm the director of the Teaching and Learning Hubs with the Student Success Center. I am also a full-time faculty member at Stanley Community College. And also, the reason that I'm in this position, in this meeting today, is that I lead the professional development for the high school teachers for CCRG. So CCRG is a partnership between the community college system and DPI. And so I am leading that professional development for the community college system. So I work closely with Dr. Levy Brown, and then we know that this is very important that we are getting the scores entered into the system. So I reached out to Monty and he helped set this up. So feel free, I'll put my email in the chat. If you ever have any questions about CCRG, you can reach out to me. Thank you.
Also, if you have any questions while we're going through this presentation, you can unmute yourself. You could ask it that way, or if you want to type it into the chat, we'll be watching that also while we're doing the session today. It is being recorded for those of you who would like to go back and refer to what Bridget says in this session. She's really the brain behind everything. I'm just the muscle. So we'll go ahead and get started on this, and we'll, like I said, entertain any questions that you have. Oh, and if you notice that I'm not looking you in the eye when I'm talking, it's because I actually have the presentation on another monitor. So I'm looking at that presentation while checking you guys, checking the chat and everything like that. So, and also once we finish today, I don't foresee this actually taking the full hour of time. So when we finish up talking about CCRG and addressing all the questions and concerns everyone has, we will turn off the recording, and we'll give you guys a chance to let it echo, and also go through and just give us any concerns or thoughts you guys are currently experiencing at your institutions.
Hey Patrick, this is Sarah at Blue Ridge.
Hey.
Hey, we've yet to have anyone that has actual scores. Can you please remind us how to do a search for a listing of IDs?
Yes, that's going to be right in this session today. So perfect question. All right. So first, let's talk about what is CCRG. And so many of you remember our conversation a couple years ago, a year ago or so, discussing what CCRG is. At that time, it wasn't completely mandated that everyone do it, but now it is. So the Career and College Ready Graduate Program is there to assist students from the high school, so that the idea behind it is so that when they come to the community college, they're not starting all over in developmental education. So one of the issues that legislators saw was that our most recent graduates were coming straight into the community college, and then even though they graduated high school, they're starting off immediately in our developmental education program. So this is aimed to reduce that and to make sure that those students, as soon as they finish high school, are going straight into our gateway courses. It was implemented statewide in all North Carolina high schools beginning this academic year. So before, you may remember, when we talked about it, we had several pilot high schools or pilot regions of the state that were conducting tests on the test and using the program and implementing it and making sure that students are actually taking it. Now it's actually mandated. So you'll start seeing more scores. I know one of the issues with this, or one of the downsides of this, is that many schools weren't participating in it, and the schools that were not governing it that well. So you weren't seeing many scores. I know that even when Stanley runs those numbers, we see very little comeback as far as test scores go. We may have one or two students that actually do the test or do the course. And then out of the one or two that do the course, maybe one might even make it to a test. So um, I'd like to say that it looks better for the future, but it's up to our individual LEAs and our schools to really make this work well for our students. Just to recap on it, it's any high school student who has an unweighted GPA of 2.2 to 2.799 after completing their first or second semester of their junior year. They're required to take the CCRG English and Math content the senior year of high school. Anyone with below that 2.2 can opt into taking it, but we all know how opting in goes when we're talking with high school students. And of course, any of the current guidelines that we use as a North Carolina Community College when we're checking for college readiness, any of those weighs the students as well. So if they've already taken an SAT, ACT, if they're in a CCP program and they're moving forward through that pathway and they've taken those additional placement tests, that stuff will keep them from having to take the CCRG. It's not really meant to make everyone take it if they've already placed out of it by other means. So it's just there for those students who aren't placing out of it by other means. And so a little bit about how the CCRG runs. It is similar to our RISE transition courses in that the math portion is 3 tiers and the English portion is 2. This way it aligns exactly with what some of our institutions are doing at the RISE courses. The required scores for these are the same, where they have to get at least an 80 in order to earn credit. And if you guys have already built your credit, which hopefully you have, that's the same cut scores that you're seeing in your system. So you put in any score up to that point and it's not going to do anything. Once you hit 80 and above, then it's going to start triggering that non-course credit. It's very important now more than ever to really look at the results as you're entering those scores. One of the things with this is that, and we haven't seen this before, so this is new. So everyone really look at this. Well, I guess it's something that may have happened in the past. Some of the high school teachers allow their students to take all the tiers, whether they are eligible or not. So I'll repeat that again. So some students, you may see all 3 tiers completed for math, and all 3 scores are below 80. So think about how that works in the system. So if they're all under 80, guess what? They're not earning any credit whatsoever. Every one of these should be a sequential score when they're going through. So when we're entering that into TSUM, you'll see that it doesn't award any credit for those folks. So now that we are mandated to do this, and students are now supposed to be taking this course, you might be asking, so what's new? Is there anything different, Patrick? What are the things that we need to really be paying attention to? This is something that everyone will start seeing, if not this go round, but they'll start seeing it next year, or even the next semester as you're processing your fall applicants. So NCDPI has given the NROC EdReady platform to our high schools from the beginning, and all of them have the access to that work beginning in the 9th grade. So that means that students could be actually doing NROC EdReady testing or coursework since the 9th grade. So one of the things that we have added to the report coming from the system office whenever you're in the service portal is the graduation year. It's going to be very important as we move forward, especially after this year. You might, like I said, you might not see it this year, but as you start moving into this over the next few years, you'll see that graduation year. And you want to make sure that the graduation year accounts for the scores that are earned during their senior year. So you want to make sure that if you have a student who has taken the tests and you're entering those scores, that for the 22-23 academic year, their test was taken sometime after August 1st or 15th of 2022 through June 2023. So that could be a student that may or may not have had the course in the springtime or in the fall or in the springtime, and they took those exams during that time. Any score prior to that, and the student is graduating in 2023, means that they took it prior to their senior year. That makes sense? All right, so pay close attention to that, because like I said, you won't see many of them right now, but you will start seeing those as we progress forward in this process. You might start seeing students who are accessing that their junior year or their sophomore year, or maybe even their 9th grade year. Again, just a reminder that we do have some on-demand training available in the service portal. So once you're logged into the service portal, you then select the CURR for curriculum 030B on-demand training. That goes over the stuff that you're looking at today, but this is the original presentation of it from a couple years ago when we did this the first time. So you'll see the basic setup of it, how to retrieve the information, and then how to enter it in. Be sure to make sure that you're using the RISE manual for scores, because that's how you're going to build things. John, I see you have your hand raised.
Thank you, Professor Holyfield. Forgive me if I'm going to embarrass myself, but I thought we had lowered the RISE cut scores to 70 instead of 80.
So it's different when we're looking at the test scores versus the course. So the course is 80.
test
Right.
scores are going to be 80, not 70.
Yeah, because the CCRG aligns with the course material in the transition courses, and so the students have to make an 80 or more.
Okay.
Whereas the test is just a test.
Okay, got it.
Yep. Good question. Good question. That would be the one point of confusion for most folks is that piece of it. So just a reminder for everyone now, if you have not logged into the service portal in a while, you're going to want to check it out, because there is this handy dandy two-factor authentication that's now in place, which makes it a little exciting. So not only you put in your credentials, but you also get the 6-digit code that you have to put in. Now, if anyone's like me and you're using your phone to enter in this code, it's like the play clock, right? So you've got like 20 seconds to fire, to shoot that, to throw the football, or it gives you another code. Then you've already halfway through the code before you can even put it in there. So make sure if you're using your phone to check out the code. You could actually look at the code prior to going into it, but I like to run the gambit on it to try to get it in there in a hurry so that I can enter in that code before the 20 seconds is up. It makes it a little more fun. So you enter in your code. Once you've entered that code in, it gives you access, and you're able to start looking at what you have access to in the service portal. You should have the CCRG test results button down at the bottom of your list of things. So it should be underneath training. If you don't have that, you want to submit a help desk ticket or work with your IT folks to get that information added to your account. There's an approval process with that. So basically you'd have to submit the information. Someone has to say yes, give them access to it, and then it's added to your account. John, is your hand still raised, or is that just giving me the palm?
Do I lower my hand, Patrick? Is that something that you do manually? We can do a virtual high five if you wish. I
Look at
mean,
that. Wait, did
Yeah.
I do it?
it's
There,
like,
I did it.
No,
I
I'm
did
good,
it.
but there you go.
All right, I lowered your hand for you, so.
Oh, so do I do
Good
that in the future? Do I take my own hand down?
I
Okay, sorry.
don't know. I don't raise my hand. I just start talking when I have a question. Normally I wind up
All right.
interrupting people.
I'll raise two hands next time.
All right, so just to get the access. So from here, you would actually click on the training. And then once you've clicked on training, then you'll see your list of course options that have the on-demand training in there. Again, if you have questions with this or need help with it, submit a help desk ticket, reach out to Sonia and Brian. They'll be able to get you squared away for it. And then once you've selected it, then you're looking at the information. So hopefully this next part will be a breeze for everyone. Because again, we were in a piloting phase, and hopefully folks have gotten a little experience of looking up the information and entering in the scores. But I know there's new people in roles, and maybe we want to hand this over to someone else in our department. So this is for you. So from here, you want to set up the non-course credit. What you want to look for is the setup guide in the service portal. So you've already logged into the service portal. You can go in and just click in the search bar and type in the RISE College Setup Guide. From there, it will actually walk you through the steps to enter in all of the CCRG non-course codes that you would use in TSUM. So any questions there? Hopefully, like I said, I hope everyone's already got that built, already in their colleague instance. But if not, and you have any questions or anything, you can actually reach out to me and I can point you in the right direction. Or if you have any questions on should I enter the score or what's this, what am I looking at for scores and stuff like that, you can reach out to myself or Bridget and we'd be able to help you out with that. So now gaining access to the test scores itself. The same thing. So this kind of goes over that process in order to get that block on there that says the CCRG test scores. So if you don't have an account, you can create your own account. And or, if you've not, one of the new things that they've put in place for the service portal is if you have not actually accessed it. I know we all get busy. So maybe you've not accessed the service portal in a while. Your account's been shut off or your password doesn't work anymore. And so from there, you can actually go through to set up your new account and then just submit the information. Once it's all approved, then you'll have access to it. And you'll have the information in there. So from there, you're looking at your again, you're requesting that information and you're getting it all set up to where then you have that block for the CCRG test results. I believe I should have Brian and Sonia on here as well, or one of you guys on here just to kind of tell us where to go once they're on there and they have a new account.
Brian's here. I don't know if Sonia is able to make it yet. How's everyone doing? So once you have the account, like Patrick was saying, you should just be able to go to that CCRG test results block there. And that's where you can enter your information to get the like the student's high school ID to get their test scores if they have any. Is that what you were talking about, Patrick? Is that what you wanted?
From here, let's say they didn't have the CCRG test block
Oh,
on there
okay.
yet. Yeah,
I see
from
what you're
here,
saying.
where would they go?
I'm sorry, go to user accounts, I believe. That's where you would
Okay.
go. Yeah, and I think from there, under user accounts is where you'll see the option for the Ed Ready request. So
Perfect.
Yep.
And that still works the same way where they would request it and then there's an approval process in the background and then they receive the block on there, right?
Correct. Yep, that's done through, I think each school has a data coordinator, manager, or whatever they're called, and they'd have to approve that. And then someone in the system office IT service management group will get that approval and get that added for you.
Perfect. Now the fun part. How do we get those high school IDs, those student IDs, the lunch number, if you will, the NCWIS number that students like to use. How do we get that information? So there's a handful of ways where you can see that. One would be in a field in XNCA. The other would be through the high school transcript. And then another would be if you were a crafty person, you could build an informal report to identify those. Hopefully, again, like I said, this is a reminder session for everyone. So they've already got the way that they're identifying all these students ironed out. So first, your XNCA, your additional demographics, your high school IDs down at the bottom. And I believe, yeah, this is an old version of that screen. So, so yeah, so you have your high school ID there. Also on your high school transcript, your student ID number is on there. So it's your student number. If anyone knows what the address of a high school is, let me know. Goes back to when I was in college. So it's a little factoid tidbit for anyone if they know what is significant about that address. And the third option that I would use for identifying these students, just because, well, I'm lazy. I don't want to go through all my high school transcripts and identify all those, and I don't want to look up each student on XNCA, is I would use an informal report to identify those students. And so one of the things that you'd want to do, so you're pulling those same fields from colleague, and then you're just listing it out, and you're using that in order to run the process on the CCRG test score side in the service portal. And if anyone wants the screenshot to this, I can email that to you. So you can just shoot me an email, and I'll get you that information. It all really depends on your informer instance and how it's mapped, but for the most part, you'll be able to get the same information. One thing to note on here is you're pulling it from your applications. And so you're looking at your start term. And so what I would do is a couple times per semester, as you're processing those applications, you can run this report and just see if you have any new incoming students that have this information. Or as you're working with a student and they just come right out and tell you, hey, I took a CCRG class in high school. Does that mean anything? It's like, well, yes, it does. So then you can go up and just enter that information. But you're looking at your application start term. You're also looking at when they last attended, because this has only been going on for just a short period. So you don't need my NCWIS number or my lunch number because I graduated several years ago. You don't need John Gibbs's lunch number. So you want to just get your most recent graduates. I always shoot back to around 2021 because that's whenever you'll start seeing your pilot schools. And that's when, Bridget, wasn't there a change in the scores or a change in the test in 2021 to what it is today?
No, it's still the same. It's just that it was pilots, and some of the pilots, instead of running through DPI, they were actually using the community college's account. So their NROC account. So that part was a little bit different. And some of the very first pilots back in like 15 and 16, some of those were using the DMAs, but it's still been the same. 2021, I would say, would be far back enough. Some of you at Alamance Community College, I know they had one of the strongest pilots there in Alamance County. So you may see some that are dated further back.
That goes to say something. That relationship between your community college and your LEAs, that's where that starts paying off. Is you start having your high schools believe in what you're doing. So they're a little more apt to actually, I hate to say caring, but they wind up caring about what we're doing here, especially in this process, to allow those students to not have to do developmental education. Again, this was only in North Carolina high schools, and so you can limit your residence state to North Carolina. For those of you around the border, if you have students living in Virginia, but they're attending a North Carolina high school, or if you have students living in South Carolina and they're attending a North Carolina high school, you could take that off, but you could even make it match North Carolina, Virginia, or South Carolina, or I'm bad at geography. What's the state to the west? Is that Tennessee? So you can add that one in there too, just in case you're on a bordering community college. You can also add that in there. So this next piece, the at least one of, that actually allows you to limit your results. And so let's say you're running this for the first time ever, then you could just back this up as far as you want. So you can make your first date and your second date be the same. So you could just say 12/1/2020, 12/1/2020. So now you ran it today. So now as you're processing applications, that's whenever you want to start using the first field that says enter the last date that you ran this. And that's when you're looking at, so now I want all the applications after today, but I still care about the ones from the transcript date on or after 12/1/2020. The reason why we do that is because just in case someone applied, they applied, but their transcript wasn't turned in yet, that will catch all those students. So let's say someone applied last week when you ran it, their high school transcript wasn't turned in yet, and then you're running it again this week after their transcript was turned in, this will pick it up. So there's some magic in the at least one of. So any questions there? Like I said, if you want a copy of the report, screenshots of the report, shoot me an email and I will type this in here. Just in case you don't know my email, there's my email. Shoot me an email and just say you'd like a screenshot of the reports. One of the things I always try to tell people not to do is don't package it up. So I won't package it for you and send it to you, because what happens is you get a copy of my database, and my database might be different. My mapping might be different than your mapping. So I don't want to ruin your Informer instance. So now we're up to the fun part of retrieving those scores. So again, this process didn't change. Once you've got that report, you've exported it out. So let's say you're using the Informer process, you've exported it out. Then you want to go and you log into the service portal. All right. Again, see now, second time I logged in, so I didn't have to use my handy dandy two-factor authentication. Just kidding, it's presentation, folks. So once you're in there, you click on CCRG test results, and you'll come up to this screen. This is where you'll enter in those student IDs, those NCWISE numbers or launch numbers. One thing to note in this report, it accepts commas. It also just accepts spaces. So what I actually do is I go through, if I'm using that Informer report, I'll give you a little heads up on this. If I use the Informer report, I export the Informer report. Now that I have the list of student IDs, then I go through and I take those and I remove all the spaces. So then I copy it over to another page or another column, remove all the gaps where the students don't have student IDs entered into the system, entered into colleague. Remove all the gaps so that when you're entering it in, it's student ID space, student ID space, student ID, and so on. So if you have more than one space, it tends to not like that. So make sure that when you're entering in, especially if you're entering in a huge list of student IDs, you want to make sure that check your spaces. Make sure that you've only got one space in there. So when you enter those in, you'll notice that it takes, if it's a large list, it takes a few minutes to actually get that to work. Don't fret. Just wait. Take a sip of your coffee, maybe eat a piece of candy, say hey to your neighbor. Then whenever you come back to it, you'll actually see the results. When those results pop up, they'll look similar to this. So most of us I will say the majority of the high school IDs you run, you will get that not found. This is not new to us. Again, this is what happens to a lot of folks whenever they run the report. So don't worry about it. If you get that, it means the report's actually working. If you don't receive anything, that means that your numbers aren't matching into what they're looking for, and it's messing the system up. And so what you'll see is you'll have the folks that do the test, like Mr. Christopher Robbins there, they were able to actually get in the program, log into the system, the NROC EdReady system, but they didn't make it to a test. So the whole semester they were there, they were able to do whatever, but they didn't make it to a test in their profile. Same with Al Gore, and then we get to Swami Swami. So now Swami Swami actually made it to the test, and it just so happens that the instructor, if you guys notice, on the math, they were able to take all 3 tiers of the test, even though their tier 2 test was a 69. So again, we need the 80 or higher. All scores are entered in. Isn't that right, Bridget? For data purposes?
Yes, yes,
Data
please do
purposes.
enter all scores, even if they're not the 80 or higher, because that is data that we're looking at. And students they have 5 attempts on each tier test. So it's possible, for math, since there's 3 tiers, you could see 15 test scores for math if the student went through all tiers and used every single attempt. Hopefully that's not happening. We hope that they're passing before the 5 attempts, but it is possible that you would see that. And then the English is 2 tiers and they get 5 attempts on each test. So that they'll be labeled like tier test 1, like it is, let's see, math tier 3 test, and then it'll be like test A, B, C, D, E. So those are the different versions. It's like multiple versions of the test, each attempt that they took. So you would want to enter all of those because we are tracking the data on the backside to kind of see how many, there's 5 attempts for each test. And so we're wanting to watch that to make sure that that's an ample number of tests. And is it too many? Is it not enough? So we are tracking that data. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Not to be the cog in the wheel. So we don't, in previous testing that's offered, we don't always enter every score, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. We try to go with the highest, so that way we're trying to give them benefit of the doubt, get them exempted in the best way possible. So if it means we don't have 15 sets of scores in there, we try to stick with what works. So inputting all of these, tracking the data on the back end, is the data also not being tracked from what is here in the service portal? It just, I'm trying to think about how our faculty are going to read it, because I think they'll be a bit confused.
I think the hard part is that it's not our instance of EdReady NROC, so it doesn't belong to the community college system. So we don't have access to physically go in and pull the data because it belongs to the high school system.
Okay.
And this is like connected from our service portal into DPI.
Okay. And then my other question is so, when we started, I said we've never had one. Well, now we actually do. We have one that looks really, really similar to your example. So putting that into Colleague is fine. Is there anything that is required for documentation purposes for the file? Since obviously this would be kind of difficult to print out for each individual student.
For that, I'm going to say that there isn't anything to actually print out. Even
Okay.
if your institution was crafty and was using an export process to import this,
Okay.
there's nothing really to print. Now, as long as we still have access to it in the service portal, we can reproduce it on the fly if anyone questioned it. So should be fine there. But yeah, there's not a way that I know of to be able to print an individual score report for the student.
Awesome. Thank you. Oh, and I'm sorry, I have one more question. My network has gone in and out several times, so like none of my chats have gone through. Are you I know that you're recording the presentation. Are you sharing the slides as well?
Yes, we could send this out.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
Patrick, this is Michelle. I have a quick question. Since we're having to report all the scores, and I know that there are non-course codes in which a student could potentially have earned an 80 but not get credit, I would assume that you're this is the first year Onslow County has offered it. There are over 1,000 students taking CCRG, and there's the potential now for 5 tests for every tier level that they could have, that we are going to have to input manually into a system and know what different non-course code we're going to have to provide for that. I just want to make sure that we need all that data in the system, and that we're supposed to, I guess, make sure that we've got the right information and it's not accidentally generating credit for tier 2 when they didn't pass tier 1. It just seems like it's a big problem waiting to happen.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like it's a lot of work. But yeah, according to system office, they want to be able to see that so they can track it moving forward. Unfortunately.
But aren't they not getting the data? I mean, could they not be getting the data themselves? If we're getting the same data this way, why can't they access that data the same way?
I think the one thing is that they probably do not, and Sonia and Brian could correct me on this, but I don't think they have access to the high school ID number coming through any of the reports. And so if they had that, then they probably could do it themselves to just track it and look at it, but they don't have that coming out of our system going to them.
I'll add one of the things I've heard from Bill Schneider, who's over our research and performance management area of system office, is that all the data that we get from you is what comes from colleague. So that's another reason why those test scores were being asked to be entered. All that would come from colleague. They don't use other sources like the CFNC application. I've been asked that before too. Well, can't you just get that from the CFNC application? And
right.
No, it'd all be from colleague.
But the data warehouses, are they not updating what they're pulling out from the application of XNCA? Because they were looking at additional information. They've added additional fields. We've been making changes to various aspects of the application. And while it's not there yet, is it not something that they could add to the report that they are pulling daily to get this information? I have a lot of concerns because we have all of this plus all the different SAT, ACT, non-course codes that come with RISE, the various we put their GPA in on XRISE. It's starting to become, and then we have to remember, okay, that it gave them this credit, so now I need to award this specific type, or we end up with 8 million different things on their stack screen.
Understood. Yeah, and you're right, Michelle. You've got the no awarding credit that where you can still add the score, but if something else has already been used to award that student credit, then you can use that so that you're not double awarding the credit on stack and making that messy. I'll take the concern back. I totally get it. It's a lot. I mean, if I were at a college, I'd have the same concern, so I completely understand. I'll take the concern back though and see if anything could be thought about or done differently. But
or while they're doing their RISE revamp, they can look at maybe changing this process as well.
I will say the community college system has worked with DPI since 2016 when this started. And we have tried to get them to put it on the transcripts and they won't. And so I know they are working on that data feed that you were just mentioning. And so I have been talking with the community college system and trying to get this information added. So there's a memorandum of understanding that is, between the community college system and the and DPI. So I've tried to get this information added to that because they are in the process of updating it. So I'm asking for that to be added there. And then I see somebody said on here they put EOC scores on transcripts. So what they have told me at DPI is that they do not put things on transcripts that show remedial work. And so that's why an EOC is different. That's what they've been telling me for years. And so, because I've continued to ask if it could be put on the transcript, and that's what they tell me is that this is considered remedial work and remedial work doesn't go on transcripts. So that's the answer that I've continued to receive from them.
And this is a conversation obviously for a different place. And I just want to thank both you and Patrick for the work that you're doing on this. And it's definitely not easy to get a bunch of registrars and admissions personnel on board with doing some of
Oh, I
the
know.
significantly more work.
It is.
But you know, it's definitely questionable because they put Play-Doh classes on there. So when a student has failed a class and sits in front of the Play-Doh screen and pushes their button that they've passed this class with a 50 or 60 or whatever it is, the minimum score that they give them to pass that thing. So they're putting that on there. I think they're just being difficult, and that's, you know, a disservice to the students and not us. But, you know, thank you guys for the work that you're doing, and hopefully we'll get it all figured out at some point.
Yeah, thank you. And I mean, these are concerns we have had since 2016 and have continued to bring up. And I'm hopeful that now that DPI actually has the funding, and you know, they are paying for their own NROC EdReady membership. They also have a full-time person working on CCRG for the first time this academic school year. I'm hoping that we are able to work through some more of these things now that it has gone statewide. But since it's been pilots so far, we haven't been able to get this data from them. But we are, please know that we continue to have conversations monthly, asking for a more efficient way for us to get this data. But right now, this is what we have to use. So I apologize.
Jody brings up a good point and says that when they come across scores, they'll actually go back into CCRG test scores and just enter the one student ID, the one high school ID, just to get just their scores on one clean sheet, and then they can print that. So if you want to, I'm not saying you have to, that's one way. That's a good idea. Could be
Yeah, but
difficult if you've got
that's-
thousands of students in Michelle's case.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, that's so much more work. And then so now I have these test scores that I'm manually entering and no record that I can put in the student's record without manually going into this and putting each individual student ID that I can generate an individualized record to add to their student file. I'm sorry, I'm done.
So now, moving forward, thanks, Michelle. Those are a lot of good things, and hopefully Brian and Bridget both can make some headway in that, especially as now it is mandated, and so everyone's supposed to be doing it that's eligible to take the course. So entering those scores in the colleague hasn't changed. It's the same way as it has before. Again, it is going to be in your T-SUM. You would go into your placement test, and when you've built it, you put in your acronym for it. And once you've entered that acronym, it will award the credit it's supposed to based on the scores that are put in. Again, there are the what I like to call the dummy ones that count, that basically are markers in there that don't award credit. Be sure to use those in the instances where we're not trying to award the credit for that student. So other than that, it's as easy as that, guys, except, you know, as we pointed out, it should be, I don't know if I've been running the report here lately for us, and I'm still seeing the same amount of folks who are even attempting the course, and from there even scoring. So it's even less now receiving scores. I had to go back to get a good example for you guys. I had to go back to the very beginning to grab what the screen looks like whenever we have scores, just because, you know, no one's making it to the tests in those courses. And, you know, there's still, it depends again largely on your LEA on how important high schools are making this for our students, and the programs that are in place for the students. So some, again, you probably never hear Bridget say this, but some, I imagine, are still seen as labs. Some are used as study halls and stuff like that. So those are the times when you will get all those students who are accessing it, but not really doing anything in there. For the most part, I hope that changes and that folks are starting to take advantage of this, just so that we can help, you know, really get back down to what we're trying to see out of this, the success that we're trying to see out of this. Hillary, you raised your hand. I think I saw that pop up.
Yes, I have a question. Can you go back to the screen that showed the results when you run it through the system office site?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so you were saying earlier, right, if they take all 3 tests and they don't pass tier 1, but they pass tier 2 and don't pass tier 3 with the 80 for tier 2, we can't count that, right? Because they didn't pass tier 1. Is that incorrect, what I'm thinking?
So tier 1, they passed.
Right, in this example, but I'm saying if they didn't pass tier 1, if the school's just saying, just take all 3 tests and see how you do.
Mhm.
If they don't pass tier 1, but make an 80 or higher on tier 2 and don't pass tier 3, that's a possibility, right?
Right.
Okay,
Correct.
so if that's a possibility and we put the scores in colleagues, I have my NONC screen pulled up and I put a score of 80 or better on the math tier 2, wouldn't it give them the credit? But we don't want it to, right? Because they didn't pass tier 1 first?
Hillary,
There-
you can give them the CCRG Math 2N, which gives them no
Yes.
credit and the score. But
Yep.
again, you'll have to know that, and your data entry people will have to know that that's what they're supposed to do.
Okay, so if they don't pass tier 1 but score an 80 or higher on tier 2, we need to enter it, but we need to give it with no credit.
Correct.
Oh, geez. Okay.
Yeah, and
When do
and
you-
we
when do you
are
use the one that's
seeing,
without credit?
Do what?
Aren't there some setups in there that say without tier 1, without tier 2? Would you not use those?
Yeah, that's what she's talking
Yes,
about.
that's what Michelle said.
Okay.
yeah, we are seeing that. So I operate office hours several times a week and for high school teachers and administrators to come and ask questions about how to implement in their schools. And some of the schools actually love the program and are using it 9th, 10th, 11th grade. When DPI purchased the platform from NROC, they wanted it available for grades 9 through 12. So all students have access. And so depending on how teachers are using it in their classrooms, you may see some of this that a student didn't have that 80 because they're using the platform in a different way. And then some teachers are just not following all the rules. And a student doesn't get that 80 on that first tier test and they're letting them move on. So we are seeing that. And I wish we had more control over it, but the way DPI purchased the platform for all grades 9 through 12, they can use the platform in other ways other than just for CCRG, the way we are using the scores. So we are seeing
Well,
that.
And we need to make sure that it's seniors that we're entering the data
Correct.
for.
Yes,
Correct.
and that won't be as big a deal right now, unless you're in one of those counties. Well, even if it was one of the previous, if it was one of the pilot schools, you can give them the credit. But, in 2025, when we're in 2025 and somebody put that their graduation year was 2025, but you look at their test scores and their test scores were from 2022, then you know that they must have used, like they had a teacher that was using that with them in the 10th grade or something, that score would not be entered because it wasn't during their senior year, because the legislation says CCRG is for seniors.
Okay, so in addition to doing all of this, we have to also confirm that they are in their senior year. The scores were taken during their senior year. We're not going to give them the benefit of the doubt if they somehow were allowed to test, which is not their fault. And we're not going to give them the benefit of the doubt if it was taken before their senior year. We have to verify all of this, and it has to fall within those exact parameters.
So the legislation states that the work has to be done during their senior year. So that's why you'll see there's a column for graduation year on the screen that Patrick has up. So their graduation year will be there, and then you'll have to, kind of look at that score and see.
Now, who's providing the graduation year? Is that the high school person? Is it the student?
It's actually the student.
So that's
And
okay.
again, we have asked DPI. I'm telling y'all, these are all conversations that we have had numerous times with DPI. We have asked DPI to send that system. we've asked that DPI send that information to NROC Ed Ready so it would show on this report. But right now that's not something that they're doing. So every single student in high school has access to CCRG, to Ed Ready platform. When they click on it for the first time, it pops up and asks them what's your graduation year. So yes, the student is the one that's typing it in there. The teachers have access to update it, but I can't promise you that they're doing that.
Yeah, and so since a lot of the obviously all of the responsibility is falling on the community colleges to ensure that all parameters are being met, what is the timeline for accountability for the public schools to ensure that these tests are being offered at the correct time and the correct information is being input?
It is state mandated this year. DPI, they are supposed to be checking. You know, I know that not everybody's doing it 100% the way it's supposed to be done. And the thing is, because DPI purchased the platform, it's not that teachers are really doing it wrong. When they let a student use the platform in the 9th grade, because DPI purchased this product to be used. So it's not that it's wrong if a student uses it in the 9th grade or the 10th, that their teacher may be using the platform in that way. So, I mean, they are held to the same legislation that we are. And our end of the deal was to come up with the program, and which was the NROC Ed Ready, and for us to come up with that we offer the professional development. So we're doing that. We do have to submit a legislative report in October each year to the legislators, and we are required to give data that shows the remediation rates. And we are only, for the community college system, the only data we can get is once a student applies to us. Even though I am so involved in this program, I can't go to NROC and say, give me all this data, how many students passed a tier test. We can only get it from students who apply to us. So that's why this portal has been built.
We are looking to have a counselor conference within the next couple of weeks. Is there any PowerPoints or anything related to Surge that came from DPI that we might be able to use to further inform our counselors? You know, we have turnover and
Right.
counselors on board.
I appreciate that y'all are willing to do that. I don't want you to feel like that's your responsibility, you know, to teach them about CCRG. We offer webinars, and there's a whole course that in Canvas, in DPI's instance of Canvas, that have PowerPoints, videos, all kinds of things that they can access. I can send you that link. With the way that, I mean, we can't access it. I can because I built the course, but community college folks don't have access to that course. And I'm happy to give you send you some slides if you want just some basic information, but I don't want you to feel like this is your responsibility, because they have tons of opportunities to come and attend professional development. So I just don't want you to feel like that's on your back.
Thank you.
And you have a question?
Yeah, I have my high school connection coordinator in here, Mr. Pace. But one of our questions, I was just saying to him, I was just sharing that CCRG is mandated. So are the high schools mandated as well? Do they get the memo? We're gonna get our high school connection lady involved in this, because we always seem to be disconnected with a piece missing. So I'm about like Michelle,
yeah.
before we do all this work, I mean, who are the people at the table?
So they should be, it's mandated, so every high school has this in place currently right now.
Yeah,
Whether they're following through, like Bridget has office hours, is that weekly?
Yeah, every Tuesday and Friday,
Yeah.
we offer
Just for
office
that,
hours.
just for them to come in and
Right.
ask questions, and
And
here's how it's going, here's what we're doing. And honestly, you know, it's spring right now, you know, we are end of February, and folks are still coming to those office hours and trying to get help. And
yeah, there were a lot of schools did implement in the fall, but there were some that didn't for various reasons. And so they are implementing this spring for their seniors. And, they run into scheduling issues. And I mean, you know how this is when something new is being implemented. We've all gone through different new things being implemented, and it takes a little while to get the kinks worked out. And so some schools are doing the best they can. And, we're trying to help them get on track so that the courses are offered, like as far as like the English is embedded in English 4. And so some schools are struggling for scheduling to get that done. So the students are going through the modules, but it's not always embedded in their English 4 class like it's, mandated to be. So we're working with them that they will do that correctly next year. So, we've tried to stress to them that we want to make sure that the students are receiving this, because it is a great opportunity for them to save time and money when they come to the community college. So we're trying to help them make sure students are getting the full benefit of the program.
Okay, thank you. We just had that question now. I'm sure, Patrick, I'll be calling you because I have 5,000 more.
No problem. No problem. Good conversation. Lisa asked about the year that they should pull it. In my Informer report, I start back as far as 12/1/20 just to capture any of those pilots. So that might be whenever you start seeing those high school transcripts or the high school students coming in who may or may not have taken it. And again, like I said, at that point, when we first started running this, it was just a big red screen. Like there weren't any. And then we had 2 or 3 that popped in that had scores. And then now it's back to the big red screen with some blue in there that just says they've logged in, but they've not made it to a test yet. But I know there's some areas have more activity in there.
So I'll ask the elephant in the room question. What happens if we miss inputting scores? And I'm not saying necessarily intentionally, but I mean, considering how manual this process is and how easy it would be to miss someone if you don't have your date set quite correctly, obviously that's a disadvantage to the student if they have eligible scores. But since this is now state mandated, what happens if we don't input a score?
So Sarah asks, is there legislature stating we have to enter these scores?
Sort of, yeah.
Like, will we get in trouble? Will the system office slap our hands?
Well, I really am afraid we're going to miss something because, I mean, this is a very clunky process, and we're all not very happy about it. We're not trying to take that out on you guys, but it's human error is going to happen at some point, and we are going to miss something.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think this, I don't know how that works. I'm not in y'all's area. Like what happens when you don't follow all the rules? I don't know what happens to y'all. But I mean, the best, I mean, you got to do the best you can. And like you said, with these students, it is a disadvantage to the students if they don't get the credit. I do think some of this will come down to some of the advising. If a student is meeting with their advisor and they say, I did this in Ed Ready, I did some CCRG, I don't know.
I think that's going to be the bigger piece of it, is making sure that
the conversation.
Your advisors know that the program is now mandated, just so that when they're having those conversations with students and they actually tell them, oh, wait, you know what, I was in this program my last year. Do I get credit for it? And then you would know, well, let me reach out to our admissions folks or whoever's running this to be able to pull that information up. I think especially if they did score well and they know coming in the door that they have it, they're going to let you know. It's like a student whose residency goes from out of state to in state. They're going to come forward and tell you that they've changed that information.
And just know that we are constantly in conversation with DPI trying to get rid of this. I feel like this is a Band-Aid. It's the only way we can get the scores right now. But we are in constant conversation with them monthly, trying to find a way to get these scores other than this method. So we really are working with them, trying to do better. And I know somebody's put down there, that's a very true statement. We're not getting the scores any other way. Y'all are the ones that are able to get the scores. I can't get them. People at the system office can't get them. It has to come through y'all. So you're right. Nobody would know unless a student,
your complaint process is where that's going to be caught. Where a student knows that they've had receive that credit and they know that they're not getting it at the high school. Good conversation. Any other questions? We actually did take up the entire time for this meeting just on this information. Now I did have, I think the only final slide was just these important websites. Again, it's the portal. You can go to the system office website to get information on the CCRG program. And then again, always, if you need more assistance, submit an incident through the service portal. Unless
Could
it's
they
trying to get into the
allow-
service portal, then
Could
I
they
submitted.
allow more than just the 4 people right now that could have access to CCRG? Because since this is such a clunky process, having just maybe 4 people access kind of slows down that process too.
That one I'm not sure of. We might be able to have more people. I think in the beginning it was more controlling the workload of the folk, because I think it was only like 1 or 2 people that was answering all 58 requests to get everyone in. But now that we're fully into it, I don't know. Is Sonia still on here? I see Brian had to leave. I'll make a note and I can ask. I could ask or request that it be lifted just so that we can get additional people in there with access.
And I was going to comment, Elizabeth asked, the high school transcript will reflect that the students in CCRG English or math, and that will not be on there. I don't think that will be on there, because it's some of this, the schools are embedding it in their English 4 classes. And then for the math, they can offer it in a intervention time. They can offer it as a standalone course. If they offered it as a standalone course, you would see that, but the grade wouldn't tell you anything. And then they also have the option for math to embed it in Math 4. So if that was done, it would just say Math 4 and you wouldn't know that the student had done CCRG. So the math, they have 3 ways that they can implement the CCRG content. The English, it's offered during their English 4 course. So I don't think that you will see that on the transcript.
Hey, Patrick, on that report that we download from the service portal or that you pull from the service portal, is it downloadable or anything, or is it just what it is on that screen? Like there's no other way to pull it to a Word document, something?
Right here. Can you
Yeah.
guys see my pointer? So if you click on that, it actually makes it into a like a CSV file, or it's not even CSV. It is it's a programmer's file. So if you have
Like Notepad?
nope, it's like a flat file. So you can export it as a flat file that programmers can use to actually import the information. I don't know has anyone attempted to do that that's on here today? I know that was the hope with that. I want to say it's a JSON file, whatever that is like one of the options. Whenever you click on those 3 on the hamburger, it should do it.
Okay.
But it's supposed to be a file that can be created into an import file to be automated more so.
It's just not been done to import yet.
Correct. There's nothing. Yeah, we've not created anything on the other side to be able to use it.
Okay.
Jesse Cross says he screenshot.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yep. Perfect. Well, if there are no other questions, if you have any more questions, like I said, you can reach out to me and I can direct those in the appropriate manner to the right person. Or if you want to reach out to Bridget, you can reach out to Bridget to ask her questions about it. Again, if you have needs or help getting into the service portal, or once you're in the service portal, getting CCRG stuff on there, you can submit a help desk ticket and they'll be able to get you squared away. I appreciate everyone joining us today, and I imagine JJ is turned off the recording, and Monty will make that recording available to you guys. So thanks again for everyone being here, and hope you guys have a good rest of the day.